All right, good evening. Thank you for joining us tonight. We are here for our regular board meeting on the 10th of February, so we are going to call the meeting to order at 6:09 p.m. Mr. Gaskins, if you would conduct roll call for us.
Yes, ma'am. Mr. Davis,
Here.
Ms. Gallagher,
Here.
Ms. Davis,
Here.
Dr. Yeager, Dr. Dykeman,
Here.
Dr. Anderson,
Here.
Dr. Gant,
Here.
Ms. Hull,
Here.
and Dr. Maddox.
Here.
Thank you. So we do have a quorum. Okay, we will move forward with item 3, and this is our silent meditation and pledge of allegiance. If you would just join us for a few seconds of silence. Thank you. If you would join us for our Pledge of Allegiance, if you would stand if you're able. I pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you very much. We will move forward to item 2. These are our recognitions, awards, and presentations. We'll start first with our district recognitions. Mr. Gaskins.
Yes, ma'am. We will bring forward Dr. Lawrence Harris for our district recognitions.
All right. Good evening, Dr. Gant, members of the board. We are first going to start with our Employee of the Month. I will read about our Employee of the Month while it is being loaded. So our Employee of the Month is Mr. Brian Bailey. Mr. Bailey is a certified electrician and has been working in the district's mechanical maintenance department for 3 years. Mr. Bailey was nominated by a fellow employee who appreciated how he constantly steps up to assist, either in an emergency situation or putting in overtime to aid another department. Not only has he mastered his craft as an electrician, but he has shown time and time again he is here to make CCSD a better place by going above and beyond, not only for our shop, but also when other departments need help. Brian stepped in when our only plumber was injured, filled in when one of the 2 HVAC techs were injured, and kept up with his electrical work orders. He was actually working 3 different trades at the same time. It's pretty impressive. Literally, Mr. Bailey helps keep the lights on. Please join me in thanking Brian Bailey for helping to make sure our school buildings are ready for teaching and learning every day. We want to give a special thanks to the Athens Area Chamber of Commerce, our local business partners for supporting this program, for providing products and services to our winners. We just want to remind our community that anyone can nominate an employee for recognition, and the information form for entry is on our district website. There we go. I do want to show, there's Mr. Bailey. I do want to at least honor, that is our mechanical maintenance. So congratulations, Mr. Bailey. We will drop off your prizes tomorrow. Thank you. Moving forward, we want to do congratulations to our 2022 District Spelling Bee champion and runner-up. Well, congratulations to Isaac Bergman, 8th grader at Clark Middle School, for winning the 2022 Clark County School District Spelling Bee on Thursday, January 27th. The competition, held at the Larry G. McClure Fine Arts Building at Cedar Shoals High School, featured students from all elementary and middle schools. Isaac correctly spelled the word moorage, defined as the action of mooring a boat or ship to the shore or to an anchor, to win and advance to the region champ competition on February 26th. The state spelling bee will be held on March 18th. Congratulations to Isaac. We also would like to congratulate the spelling bee runner-up, Ms. Eliza Snow, 5th grade student at Chase Street Elementary. The video of the entire competition is posted on the district website, but let's give a congratulations to Ms. Snow as well. We're gonna ask both our winners to come up front, and if our Board of Education members can come around the table for a quick photo opportunity. Congratulations again. We will move on to our Martin Luther King Jr. Art and Essay Contest winners. So every year, our students participate in a district-wide art and writing competition designed to provide education about and connection to Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s legacy. This year's theme was Unity, Working Together for Hope and Peace. And all of the student submissions are presented in a video on our YouTube channel. We also created a short video as part of the annual Martin Luther King Jr. Freedom Breakfast at the University of Georgia. We're gonna watch some of the students explain how they interpreted this year's theme. Their inspired messages of hope, along with some sage advice, will resonate with all of us.
Dr. Martin Luther King was a man who fought for civil justice.
He was an activist who fought for equality and freedom.
He was someone that helped everyone be able to have the same opportunities.
Martin Luther King taught me how to bring love and peace and joy to people.
Martin Luther King has taught me you can be friends with anybody, even if you're a different race.
He wanted to make a right, to make a difference in the world.
He taught me that he could bring hope and peace and love to everybody.
He taught me that you should treat people all the same, no matter their race or gender.
We should work together to make this world better. Don't always think of yourself. Think of people around you.
Some of my best friends do not look like me, yet they are still my friends. When we work together, we can do great things for each other.
I decided to draw this piece of art to show others the true meaning of unity.
The picture I drew shows that it does not matter the color of your skin. We need peace and hope for all.
I wanted to make this to maybe, encourage people to live greener and unite.
I wanted to show the world that under our skin we're all human.
You can be friends with anyone.
MLK was somebody who changed the world in a way that will never be forgotten.
I'm very proud to introduce our 2022 Art and Writing Contest winners for the 2022 Martin Luther King Jr. Writing and Art Contest. Our K2 art winner from Timothy Road Elementary was Miss Evelyn Amerson, 2nd grade. Our K2 writing winner also from Timothy Road, Simon Barner, 2nd grade. Our 3 through 5 art winner, Jaden Mulamutil, 4th grade, Barrow Elementary. 3 through 5 art honorable mention, Kennedy Gates, 3rd grade. 3 through 5 writing winner, Noah Edwards, 3rd grade. 3 through 5 writing honorable mention, Jadori Bennett, 4th grade. 6 through 8 art winner, Selene Pez, 7th grade. 6 through 8 writing winner, Yosgat Suarez Alvarez, 7th grade. Join me in congratulating our 2002 Art and Writing Contest winners. I will again ask our board to come forth for another photo opportunity. Congratulations to all our winners. Mr. Gaskins, that concludes our recognitions for this evening.
Thank you, Dr. Harris. Dr. Gant, that concludes our recognitions.
Wonderful. Thank you and congratulations to all of our Clark County School District students on such wonderful achievements. We will move forward with any board member announcements. I'm going to turn the floor over to my colleagues if you have any announcements that you want to make. Mr. Davis and Dr. Maddox.
Yes, I announced this in January, and I'm announcing it again. There is going to be an opening for the school board for District 1. I encourage people, if they're interested, please feel free to give me a call. I'll love to talk to you about it. And tell your friends, tell everybody. These school board elections sometimes go under the radar, and they always have since I've been on the board. So I'm just trying to do what I can to make sure that we have a lively debate around education on these school board elections. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Davis. Dr. Maddox.
I would like to also state that I have chosen not to, can you hear me?
It's hard for me to hear you.
I don't hear me either. Oh, there we go.
Okay.
Maybe I need to get a little closer. There we are. I stated that I will also not be running again. I want to thank everyone who encouraged me to run, and those who have supported me throughout, sent me letters of encouragement, phone calls, and those who didn't quite agree with me many of the times, because it takes all of our voices, and I do recognize that I'm made for the streets. I'm ready to get back to advocacy on the grounds, and so I look forward to working with you all. I've learned a lot being on the school board, and you will have a better advocate on the streets in Tawana Matters, so thank you all. Love you too. And I have one other announcement.
Sure.
I would just like to give a shout out to the Barrow Elementary neighborhood leaders for the STEM water festival that they held this weekend. It was totally awesome, and they actually recognized Jessie Barnett, one of our sheroes of the community, and how she and Evelyn Neely, Miriam Moore, and Virginia Walker were very instrumental in getting water, and advocating through Lyndon B. Johnson's Model Cities program. And so she gave Barbara Barnett and Pamela Brown, they did a great job. The families were very engaged, and I want to give a special shout out to a young man. His name is Evan Cornish. He's in the 8th grade at Clark Middle School, and he's so conscious. I'm serious. He's really on top of learning about history, and we had an engaging conversation. And I told him that I was going to shout him out today, and so I thank he and his mom for being there along with all the other families.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. T. Additional, Ms. Gallagher.
Okay, so I reached out to a few principals, and they sent me back some information. So from Stroud, at a recent assembly, 20% of their students had already met their growth goal for the year in reading on already, and 25% of the students have done the same in math. These percentages represent 148 students across kindergarten through 5th grade, with some of them meeting their goal in both subject areas. So go Stroud. Also at Stroud, Mr. A, who is also a person who gets up really early to make sure that car riders can get out of their car early. He's the art teacher. He secured an AthFest grant for the 4th graders, Stroud Scholars. And they're working with Mr. Broderick Flanagan, who is doing he's a former student at 4th Street before it became Stroud. And they're doing a mural, and the 4th graders are gonna help fill that in. At Coyle, the boys basketball team, they are the 2021-2022 Classic City Middle School champions, so go cool. And then Miss Eskridge, who is one of my children's favorite teacher of all times. She's an 8th grade ELA teacher, and she was selected to receive the Northeast Georgia RESA Shared Services Positive Partnership Award. So go Miss Eskridge. Also, Cedar Show's baseball season is starting. So if y'all love baseball, they have games all next week, and the week after that, and the week after that. So support Cedar. And also at BHL, Mr. Rick Dunn with Education Matters is starting an after-school program focusing on journalism, and they're using the high school journalism, I wrote it down. They're using the high school standards for journalism, and they are taking 10 students for after school over there at BHL. So I'm looking forward to seeing those ELA scores go up. Mr. Dunn always works magic. And that's all I got, I think.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that information. A lot of accomplishments there. Additional announcements? I'll just mention really briefly at J.J. Harris, Chris Anani, and I know there are so many wonderful things going on across the district, shared with me a while back, actually, a program. It's really activities that students can be involved in, and so the students at the school are actually producing like videos and announcements that are centered around child mental health. And I know as we think about, the mental health of children, and so they typically at that time they make videos for Mental Health Mondays, and then the 10 Essentials on Thursdays. And that's just a way to get the children involved, as well as prioritizing just conversations about mental health. All right. Any additional announcements from board colleagues?
Things going on, but to take this off.
Okay. Yes. All right. We will move forward with our bond attorney presentation. Okay, can you hold on one second? We want to be sure that everyone can hear you.
All right, is that better? Oh, there we go. I can hear myself now. Jim Woodward, law firm of Gray, Pennell Woodward. We work a lot of cities, counties, school districts throughout the state of Georgia. We focus primarily on bond financings, just like the one that was approved at your election this past November. I'm based here in Athens, and actually, since you moved in here, you're officially my closest neighbor or client. I'm right next door in the blue building, and so it was a very short walk. So I was very excited for this, come to this meeting. But I really just want to introduce myself. I worked on your previous bond transaction as well, and I appreciate the opportunity to work with you again on this one. Since election happened in November, we're in the next step of this transaction, which is preparing for the bonds and all the steps to issue the bonds later this year. Right now, we're drafting documents, working with your team, and preparing an offering document, which will be used to market the bonds and go out to rating agencies for rating for the bonds. And then after that, we'll go out to the market and then price the bonds, and then come back before this board for approval. It'll be a bond resolution, which will outline all the terms of the bonds for your approval. And then if you approve the bonds at that time, we'll close, probably a few weeks later, and you'll have the funds available to start building all the projects that are approved by that SPLOST. And then the bond structure, where the SPLOST revenues as they come in will be used to pay debt service on the bond throughout the 5 years of the SPLOST, and so that'll be the primary source for repayment. But what the bonds do is that they finance the projects now, so you can take advantage of them and actually build them all at this time and let all your contracts at one time. And then as the SPLOST comes in, it basically repays the bonds over the term of the bonds. But really, that's it. I just want to introduce myself and answer any questions you might have at this point. And again, I am right next door, literally, and so anytime or any questions you have, I can either stop by or you can come by my office or give me a call as well. I'll be happy to go through any questions you have throughout this process.
Thank you.
I want to thank you for that offer, and I may call you to stop by.
Please do. Please do.
Questions? Comments?
Just thank you for explaining it. It makes a lot more sense, so thank you.
Oh, sure. I'm happy to do it. And there are no questions. The action tonight you're taking is called official intent resolution. This is an IRS document. This doesn't bind you to the bonds or do anything. Basically, it gives you the opportunity to reimburse yourself for any costs that you spend right now from the bond issuance later this year. And it's just an IRS step that's required. That's the only action being taken tonight. It's something to allow you all to start working on projects if you want to right now.
And you mentioned that this is the beginning of the process, so we haven't received our rating for the loans, essentially, that we're going to. Do you anticipate the rating remaining?
Yep. So I think and the underwriter is Raymond James, and we had a meeting a few weeks ago, and I think your rating was reaffirmed just recently, and so it should stay the same. Is what we're expecting, and so should be no change. Okay, all right, thank you.
All right, thank you very much.
Okay, I appreciate it. Thanks.
All right, we will move forward to item 3, and that is to amend or adopt the agenda. The floor is open.
I move that we adopt the agenda.
Second.
I would like to make a motion that we have an executive session.
Okay.
Along with that,
Okay.
to discuss personnel.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second, and then a separate one, and I think that may be a substitute motion in this case, unless you want to withdraw those motions.
I withdraw.
Okay. All right, so we have a motion on the floor for executive session for personnel, and specifically, well, we have a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. And Mr. Davis, if I'm understanding you correctly, for personnel, that would be to discuss or deliberate, excuse me, upon the appointment, employment, compensation, hiring, disciplinary action, or dismissal, or periodic evaluation or rating of a public officer or employee or to interview applicants for the position of superintendent. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so we have a motion, a second. Any questions about the motion that's on the floor, or any comments?
I didn't see this come through the email, but is this to discuss new information, or is this something that we've discussed previously?
To me, it's new information, but it may not be to you.
To clarify, have we discussed this in an executive session before, or will this be a new discussion in this executive session?
I think it's going to be an expansion of what was talked about before in January.
Okay, any additional comments or questions related to the motion on the floor? Okay. So we have a motion on the floor to amend the agenda. Mr. Davis, I'm assuming that would be item 11 towards the end. Is that where you're?
It's up to the chair, whatever her preference is.
The desire of the board, well, let's vote on the motion. So we'll put it there towards the end. All in favor of approving that amendment for the executive session for the stated reasons, if you would raise your hands and say aye. Aye. Okay, any opposed, the same signs? Okay, and any abstaining? Okay. Okay, so that motion passes. Now, the floor is open to adopt the agenda as amended, and that would be with that personnel item is number 11 now. The floor is open.
So moved.
Second.
All right, questions? Comments or concerns? All in favor of adopting the agenda as amended, if you would raise your hands and say aye. Aye. Any opposed, the same signs? And any abstaining? Okay. That motion passes, and so we have our agenda, our amended agenda before us. Excuse me, we're going to move forward to our public comment. We have a list of individuals that will be participating tonight in our public comment. Just a reminder, according to our policy, public comments are limited to 3 minutes, and also no personal attacks will be tolerated. And so if your comment goes in that direction, we will ask you to discontinue speaking. I do want to mention, I know earlier there was someone who did not get a chance to get on the list, and Ms. Palmer, from my understanding, they spoke with you and mentioned that if there was a person who did not show up, that they could take that place. Yes, they did, and they mentioned that they had spoken with you, and so I wanted to put that out there for the board. I don't think that is a chair's decision necessarily. I know we've had people, or a person at least, request that before in the past, and so just trying to get an idea of where you all are with that.
I think at this point, for me, I would prefer to stay with the policy that they have to sign up by the deadline, only because other people wouldn't know that that was an option. If that's something that we want to consider in the future, I would be open to considering that and changing the policy. But my opinion right now is that we should leave it as it is.
That is my recollection as well. We've not allowed that in the past, and I think, again, it creates an unfair opportunity for some.
Okay. And so is there a general consensus with Dr. Dykeman, or?
Going forward, I think so. But I'm okay with it tonight, but going forward, just to reiterate the policy in the future.
All right, well, I am going to, let's stick with our policy tonight. However, I will encourage, I can't remember the person, and I can't even really see that well, but, and so I would encourage that person, like, please share the comments. Be sure to reach out, to individual board members, and maybe even share that letter before then, or before our next meeting, and that way each of us can hear your comments. Okay. All right.
I'm sorry. May I speak? Sure. Okay. So before we start our comments and start hearing from the public, there are a number of signs in the audience, and we can certainly see them all. And I know a lot of thought and effort went into putting those signs together. But we do have a policy of not attacking our personnel, and we should not attack you as well. It's very uncomfortable to see signs attacking our administration when we're sitting here trying to conduct a business meeting. So I would ask that we evaluate that in terms of, is that an allowable practice? Thank you.
Are you asking the board to discuss that, Ms. Davis?
Absolutely.
Okay. As we enter into public comment, I will say my understanding is that it does fall within the, it's sort of a pretty subjective area as it relates to the right to speak and share opinions, and I know sometimes they do make us uncomfortable, but I am going to defer first to if there's any legal guidance, but then also certainly want to hear from other board members as well.
There we go. Yeah, your policy is to refrain from personal attacks on individuals, and so that's what we need to stick to. I don't know that we have a policy or could even enforce a policy against general principle statements or signs for that matter, but you have a content neutral, applies to everybody, no matter who you're attacking. We don't attack individuals by name.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Pruitt. Others? Okay. We'll move forward. And I think I already mentioned that the 3 minutes and no personal attacks. Yes, I did. We will start with Hannah Barnett. And after Hannah is Erin. Is that McClanahan? McClanahan?
Mm-hmm. Hello, I'm Hannah Barnett, a senior student athlete at Clark Central. I'm here today to address a prevalent problem in our high school, the lack of women's locker rooms. Clark Central has 10 men's and 12 women's varsity sport programs. Even though we have more women's sports than men's, our school contains 4 men's locker rooms and only 1 women's locker room. There are 2 football locker rooms, 1 baseball locker room, and 1 basketball locker room accessible for the boys. However, the girls have access to 1 basketball locker room and now use the JV locker room as well. As a student athlete at Central, I've experienced the inequality firsthand. For example, to change for soccer practice, our team piles into a 5-stall bathroom in the new gym. Basketball is still in season at the time, so we have no other place to change. We wait for each other to finish using the stall, or we cram into the small access space to change for practice. Another example, weight training class consists of both genders. While there is an enormous football locker room used for the boys to change, there is no locker room for the girls. The closest girls' locker room is across the campus in the new gym. That said, female students have to request a key from a coach to unlock the coach's locker room, which is a 1-stall bathroom with a small lounge space. So, once it is made accessible, all the girls have to wait in line. Other student field athletes struggle with the same issue. The softball team, for example, is forced to change in the visitors' football bathroom and store their stuff in a cement shed that leaks. Meanwhile, the baseball team up the hill has a locker room they change in with cubbies designated for them. The volleyball team changes in the old JV football locker room and claims it wasn't getting cleaned regularly, leading to maggots in the toilets. Women's track has to change in the crowded basketball locker room. The space issue will become more of a problem next year as the school is adding another women's sport, flag football. where are they going to change? Some people say the district doesn't have the money. However, we could have used some of the funds from the school's renovation 5 years ago, or some of the funds used to install the turf field and the away team field house. It seems like gender equality is not a top priority. Title IX has notified our school of the issue years ago, but administration just decided to call the JV football locker room a women's locker room and doesn't have any further plans of addressing it. Female athletes have very limited spaces to change, and it is a problem. We ask that the district plan to add a women's locker room to our school. This is not a funds issue. This is an equity issue. Thank you.
Thank you. Aaron.
Good evening. My name is Erin McClanahan, and I'm currently the music specialist at Oglethorpe Avenue Elementary School. Tonight, the reward far outweighs the risk of speaking publicly, the reward being the relationships I have built this year within our school and district family, especially as a first-year employee of Clark County Schools. I invite you all to look within yourselves, taking the popular topic of what's your why and changing it to why are you here? Why are you all here tonight? Why am I here? I'm here tonight because of my mother, Jan DeCaney, a 40-year elementary music teacher who taught up until 2 weeks before she died of cancer in 2015. I am her legacy. I'm also here tonight for my son Brennan, who suddenly passed away at home in November from presumed RSV at the age of 1. Our audience is here tonight for many reasons, and I stand with them in unwavering support, as they did with my family and I when I found my son deceased in his crib on his father's birthday. So I ask you all tonight, think about your why for being here and what your legacy will be in your position. If you move on from your position or retire here, will your legacy be a word salad of an apology without saying a simple I'm sorry to the ones in the trenches affected the most? Will your legacy be comments associating the LGBTQ+ community with the Nazi genocide of the Holocaust? Will your legacy be watching the caravan or caravans of CCSD teachers leaving for other districts? Will your legacy be the absence of any sort of structure, resulting in an environment full of chaos and disorganization? You still have the opportunity to change your legacy to be like Jan or Brenny or anyone in the audience, and tonight I invite you to take control of where your legacy will take you. Let's all do better. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Jamie Mays, and then after Jamie is Jennifer Albano.
Did you skip Danielle?
I'm sorry, did I skip someone?
Danielle.
Danielle, I'm sorry. Danielle is up now, and then Jamie, and then Jennifer.
Danielle Banana. Is that okay?
Okay. So Danielle is not here. All right, Jamie.
All right, is that good? I'm short. Good evening, board, district leaders, and community. The last 2 weeks as a parent at Oglethorpe Avenue Elementary have been stressful, full of long days paired with sleepless nights. My head full of the stories I've heard from parents and teachers who have reached out to me for help. In truth, the public outcry of the last month in news and social media is only the tip of the iceberg. The work that I have done in Congress with many of my fellow Athenians, both parents of CCSD students and people employed by CCSD over the last 2 years, has been one rooted in accountability and transparency. Wherever you land on the issues facing our community today, Adding more transparency and accountability is something we all would benefit from. There is a calculated and concerted effort on the part of our school district to gaslight and ignore the real lived trauma and painful experiences of us, Athenians. Darkness cannot drive out darkness. Only light can do that. There are some in this room right now that have made an effort to characterize this collective effort for accountability and transparency as a negative narrative or as disruptive. That could not be further from the truth. I love this city. I love my school. I love my kids' teachers who keep their eyes on my child and their purpose in spite of the abuse they receive in their own school buildings daily. And I love the staff working in the buildings and on the school buses for poverty wages every day to keep the operations of the school day intact. Hate cannot drive out hate. Only love can do that. It is with this same love that I implore you, school board members, and commend you for continuing to pair crafting policy with directives that will lead to true transparency and accountability. Clark County School belongs to Athens. Calling our schools community schools without affording the community an opportunity to offer true input and have ownership of some decision-making authority is harmful. It hurts. I'll leave you with a selection from Haitian-American author Pierre Jonty. You should dance with the skeletons in your closet. Learn their names so you can ask them to leave. Have coffee with your demons. Ask them important questions like, what keeps you here? Learn what doors they keep finding open and kick them out.
Thank you. Jennifer.
Good evening. My son is a pre-K student at Oglethorpe Avenue Elementary School. He and his younger sister are the most important assets in our family. Our children call my wife Mama, and they call me Ima, which is Hebrew for mother. We are a same-sex parental unit, 2 mothers. We proudly represent the L in the LGBTQIA community. I come to you, the CCSD Board of Education, as a concerned parent. I fail to see the logic behind asking a student to hide their artwork because it is imposing one preference over another student's opinion. Hiding is something that our community has struggled with overcoming for decades. The message you are sending is conflicting with the repeated statements that this school district supports their diverse communities. Mandating that artwork be hidden has opened this up to becoming a very slippery slope very quickly. Prior to my son's first day of school, his teacher asked the parents to send a family photo. There is a section of the classroom set up like a tree, and the family photos are displayed on the wall. In the event any of the children feel homesick, they can visit that section and be reminded of the comforts of their family and home. These are 4- and 5-year-olds. Our family photo hangs on that wall, which is clearly that of 2 women with their 2 children. My son will gladly tell anyone this is my mama and my Ima and my baby sister. At what point is this imposing one preference over another student's opinion? Will there be a conversation, a meeting, a policy quote that warrants his teacher to remove that photo from plain view and place it somewhere that is less visible to other students, parents, otherwise those who may be offended by it, or prompt questions from children whose parents are not willing to have discussions? The pre-K social studies curriculum states students should be able to identify family roles. There is no father in our family unit. When my son comes home and asks me about the pictures on the wall and have a mom and a dad, will I be expected to have that conversation with him? Which I feel he is too young to learn about other families might be different than his. Pictures of families with moms and dads could very well be considered imposing one preference over another student's opinion. Should I hold the teacher, the principal, the school, and the district responsible for exposing my child to those things I'm not prepared to discuss? So should those things be removed, hidden from view? Or should we only remove and hide the things that stray from the comfort of the status quo? The school district would benefit from an intense diversity training. I highly recommend pursuing this and enlightening all those charged with the molding and educating of our diverse community of students. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Ginger Stickney, and after Ginger is Rowena Castillo Stickney.
Good evening, board members, CCSD administration, and the CCSD community. My name is Ginger Stickney. I want to begin with some data collected from the Human Rights Campaign, who surveyed 12,000 youth ages 13 through 17. 77% of LGBTQ teenagers surveyed reported feeling depressed or down over the past week. 95% of LGBT youth report trouble sleeping at night. LGBT youth of color and transgender teenagers experience unique challenges and elevated stress. Only 11% of youth of color surveyed believe their racial or ethnic group is regarded positively in the US. And over 50% of trans and gender expansive youth said they can never use schools' restrooms that align with their gender identity. More than 70% report feelings of worthlessness and hopelessness in the past week. Only 20%, 6% say they always feel safe in their school classroom. And just 5% say all their teachers and school staff are supportive of LGBTQ people. 76% report that they've heard family members make negative comments about LGBT people. I stand before you as a queer educator and parent. I have been fortunate that my administrators have been accepting and respectful, as have most of my coworkers. I have also been privileged to work with staff who actively seek to make our classrooms safe places for our LGBTQIA students. Sadly, my experience is not consistent across the district. Too many of my fellow LGBTQ teachers have experienced discrimination and ignorance. While bullying is never tolerated at my school, I have witnessed students struggling with what too many adults consider small things, like teachers consistently misgendering them or not using their chosen name. How many of our LGBT students have to hide at home only to come to school and experience ignorance and sometimes contempt for who they are? These aggressions, big and small, wear away at a person. Simple things can make life easier for our LGBTQIA children. Things like having affirming stickers and artwork on classroom doors, access to LGBTQIA literature, adults who respect pronouns and chosen names. Having clubs and spaces dedicated to LGBTI students can reduce depression. But if staff remains untrained concerning LGBTQIA issues, these little things end up being seen as problems or frowned upon as being political. I call on CCSD to follow the county in creating an anti-discrimination ordinance, which would provide a common measure for all schools to follow. This ordinance would go a long way in making minority people feel safe and protected as well as accepted. Well, go ahead, I'll let you go.
Thank you. Rowena?
Good evening. My name is Rowena Castillo Stickney, and I'm a 5th grade student at Oglethorpe Avenue Elementary. I'd like to speak about the removal of the art stating gay is okay from my classroom and how it affects my classmates and me. When I first heard the art was being removed, I was angry because I felt the administrator who removed the art didn't accept me for who I was. Also, taking down the art makes me feel like they don't want my kind of family at the school. It's important for LGBTQIA kids to feel safe at school. Some kids' parents might not be supportive, and school is the only safe place for them. When people say that elementary age kids can't know they're gay, I say, why do people think straight kids know about their identity and they don't? It's natural for 5th graders to have crushes on people, and gay kids have crushes too. They can't help it, just like straight kids can't help having crushes on people of the opposite gender. I would like the district to teach their employees how to treat LGBTQI people with respect and acceptance. Thank you for your time and have a good evening.
Thank you. Wendy Mull, and after Wendy is Amanda Macon.
Good evening. My name is Wendy Mull. I came here this evening to discuss my outrage at the behavior of the principal at Oglethorpe Elementary School. I felt it's very appropriate, and somebody in that position who is around children, is responsible as a role model, is unacceptable behavior and very unprofessional, and I'm sure does not reflect the attitude of the school board. And I'm just one parent, and one, I believe I speak for the community in this. It's terrible, and it sends a very bad message to the students, and this gentleman is a role model, and it's appalling. And the video, the video's all over the internet, and I don't have anything fancy to say. I'm just speaking through my heart, and I hope that this lands on someone's ears. Thank you.
Okay, Amanda, and then after Amanda is it Elise Forster?
Good evening. My name is Amanda Macon, and I'd like to speak to school climate at Oglethorpe Avenue Elementary. I have a 5th grade son at Oglethorpe Avenue. I've been a parent at this school since 2012, when my now high schooler began kindergarten. I've served as treasurer of PTO and volunteered in several teachers' classrooms over the years. My husband has mentored in the building, organized field trips to the courthouse, and served on LSGT. I have family, friends, and colleagues who work in that building. All that to say, for the past decade, we have put our hearts into the school and love it dearly. But now is the time to face the fact that it is in bad shape. Morale has steadily declined over the past 3 years, and this most recent incident has pushed it to a breaking point. Teachers and staff are doing their best to keep their heads up and take care of our kids, but it is not an easy task when trust has been broken repeatedly with an administration that is supposed to provide a support system. This administration seems more concerned with silencing teachers and shutting down dialogue with parents and the community. We have a principal who repeatedly reminds his subordinates that he is their superior. Teachers chastised for passing important information to parents. Listservs within the school disabled. Weekly updates that are filled with platitudes instead of addressing tough problems. And unreturned emails, including unanswered questions. One recently from Rabbi Linder, who reached out to discuss the comparison between rainbow art and a swastika, and shamefully received no response. It's a hard time to be an educator of any kind. I would not be here tonight if it didn't truly feel like this was an emergency. If this administration stays, our teachers will go at a rate that will be devastating. It will take years to build Oglethorpe Avenue Elementary back. My kid is there for 3 more months. This is not about him or me. I am deeply worried about the teachers struggling within that building and the state that our school will be in next year when they can't bear to come back. Thank you for your time.
Elise, and next, after Elise is Ashley Callahan.
Hey y'all, good evening. My name is Elise Forrester. I am here in support of my Oglethorpe Avenue Elementary family as well. Just wanted to say that I am another concerned CCSD parent. My family and I are in our 9th year of Clark County Schools. I have a 7th grader now at BHL and a 5th grader who is specifically in the DLI program at Oglethorpe, which is why I'm here this evening. As everyone else has said, in our tenure at CCSD, we've really grown to love our community and our school, and everyone that's here with us tonight represents exactly why we love it there. Specifically this evening, wanted to talk about the future of the Spanish dual language immersion program. 7 years ago, my husband and I made a strategic life choice to enroll our daughter in the inaugural year of the language program. We did not come by this decision lightly, but we're excited about the lifelong effects and opportunities that it would bring her. OAES has undergone a complete leadership change since the inception of the program, but from the beginning of our journey in the old school building, the DLI parents were all assured that the advanced language and cultural content would continue through middle and high school. We were told explicitly that CCSD would use Gwinnett County Schools as a model, and those partnerships and that roadmap were already there. In the last 3 years under our new administration, myself and many parents have asked for repeated information regarding the DLI Go Forward plan. My repeated emails to current administration have gone unanswered. We've reached out to BHL and many board members that are here tonight as well. We've gotten zero response from many, or some simple response that says, quote, "It's on our radar." Is it acceptable in any job to simply not reply to an email? I mean, I can't get away with that in my job. So unfortunately, the communication to all parents and all stakeholders in our community has become abysmal. We're left feeling disregarded and questioning our children's future and our place in CCSD. This disregard seems to be indicative of a larger problem. So I think I'm running out of time here. Just wanted to say that my daughter is an English native speaker, but she now reads, writes, and does her math in Spanish, which is pretty freaking incredible. But we fear that dropping this program is what's coming, so surely this is not what CCSD has in mind, and we don't want anyone to abandon the investment that we have. I'll just close it out with saying, I know that we've had surveys come out lately about some innovation for our charter schools. I really would just ask that you all please keep in mind that this is an innovative program that you already have and that we don't have a future plan for it. So instead of asking for more ideas, invest in the one you already have.
Thank you. We have Ashley, and then next is Asia Thomas.
I'm here to remind you that many stakeholders at Clark Middle remain highly concerned about the removal of our principal. The situation at OAES just underscores the importance of good and compassionate leadership, the kind of leadership that Clark Middle School had under Chris Pinley. I do not wish to malign the current temporary principal in any way, and I appreciated that at her first principal chat, she stated that she did not ask for this, that it also turned her life upside down, that she had nothing but respect for Mr. Pinley, and that she would do her best. And I believe that Mr. Pinley was doing his best as well, and that his best was pretty excellent. My name is Ashley Callahan, and I have 2 kids at CMS, one in 8th grade, so we've been there for Mr. Pinley's full time as principal, and one in 6th, so we'll be there for a while longer. Every time I saw Mr. Pinley in school, he was calm and kind. His weekly emails were something special. They were thoughtful and heartfelt, and they helped me know what was going on at the school besides just the basic schedule of events. I missed those emails. Sometimes he would even include links to outside readings so that parents could better understand how he was making decisions and just what restorative justice was all about. He was always transparent in his decisions. Anyone could ask questions during his principal chats or other information sessions, and he would answer them with clear answers, and he could explain the reasons behind those answers, which makes the lack of explanation and transparency in his removal all the more galling. Dr. Blankenship and Mr. Gaskins met with the CMS PTA in a nearly 3-hour-long Zoom session that left many of us angrier than before because they continued to answer nothing. Mr. Gaskins acknowledged that the situation could have been handled better. Dr. Blankenship stated that Mr. Penley is doing a phenomenal job in his new role, which surprised none of us. I believe that the decision to remove Mr. Penley was rash and reactionary. How he was removed was shameful. I believe that the district owes him an apology. Mr. Gaskins acknowledged that the relationship between CCSD and the CMS stakeholders is damaged. I do not see how that can be repaired without a clear justification for this extraordinary and disruptive and unsettling action. One of your roles is to oversee the superintendent who carried out this action, so I urge you to seriously look into this decision and work with the superintendent to make the situation right, preferably by returning our principal to our school. Thank you.
Asia Thomas is up, and after Asia is Chorus Franklin.
Good evening. I want to just say I appreciate the opportunity to be able to be here today, and I honor each and every one of you all in your respective positions. I think sometimes surface things can be a distraction to what the real problem is and what is really plaguing our community. Bullying. Bullying fuels our suicide rate, our school shootings, our school fightings, gang and gun violence, our dropout rates, and the ability to educate our kids. Because of bullying, kids oftentimes don't want to show up for school. Bullying is a public health issue, and sometimes it's hard to gauge and to bring under control. I have a niece that is 14 years old, and she had a friend that is a part of the LGBTQ community. They've been friends since she was in kindergarten. One day she came and told her friend that her friend invited her to a gay parade, and she told her friend that she couldn't go because of her religious beliefs. That day, her friend went around the school, went on the internet, and said that she was homophobic, that she was full of hatred, that she didn't like people, and they ostracized her. My niece didn't want to go to school. She felt suicidal. She felt like she didn't have any friends in the world because of these rumors that were going out about her. I think when we think about diversity, we have to look at it on both ends of the spectrum. We can't just look at it from one lens. Bullying is not okay. And it's not okay if I'm bullying from the lens of my sexual orientation, and it's also not okay if I'm bullying from a religious lens. I think that what we need to address is this issue of bullying. Unity does not mean that we're going to agree upon everything in us coming together as a community, but it's about loving and respecting one another. Whatever your beliefs are, whatever your lifestyle is, at the end of the day, it's about love and respect. And I think what needs to happen as a school board and as a society is to address this issue of bullying. Here's a few statistics. 90% of students in the grades 4 through 8 are reported to be harassed. Over 160,000 kids refuse to go to school each day because of bullying, and nearly 75% of school shootings have been linked to harassment and bullying. There's a program called I Can, and it's by way of United Community Outreach, where we have the opportunity to talk about conflict resolution and the ability to come together in a place of empathy and respect that we can understand. And I want to propose to the school board that when these issues of bullying and fighting come along, to not just to suspend the students, but allow them to go through some type of class that deals with this issue of bullying so that they can learn empathy and they can learn respect for one another, regardless of what your beliefs are.
Thank you. We have Quares Franklin up, and after Quares is Chris Woodward.
Yes, my name is Quares Franklin. And as we can see, we have a few minutes right here to talk. And I just want to address a problem that we have out in the community. Right now, as we talk, as the seconds count, man, we got young men joining gangs. We got young men dying on the street. We got young men running away from home, and parents don't know what to do, how to do it. It's just a whole bunch of chaos. Like in school, we got the school shootings, but we have a solution to these problems. I'm the director of NYM, mentoring young men. So our whole mission is to go to each neighborhood and basically build relationships with the kids, build relationships with the parents, teach the kids how to do community service, teach the kids make sure they're doing good in school, line the kids up with different mentors that will stand by their side. Mentors will call them 2 days a week and check up on them, do things with them in the weekend. And basically, because everybody, I have 2 kids, but there's a lot of kids don't have fathers. So our program, this is part of our program, we have a 12-month program. 1 month we teach the kids honesty. 1 month we teach the kids respect. 1 month we teach the kids integrity. But our mentors, ourselves, they go through training. I make sure we train them before they get on the field. And we don't also just talk about it, we build about it, we lead by an example. So it's just a little bit of our program. So we have another program that we're part of that we can end gang violence, we can end bullying. It's curriculum that basically that we go up in the schools and we can talk to the kids and basically build relationships with them right there, and we can show them and talk to them. Not only just talk to them in the school, because when they go outside of the school, they got to go back home to an environment. We also checking up on them in the environment at home, things like that. So that's what we're doing, mentoring young men.
Hey, thank you. My name is Anthony Harris. I grew up in Clark County School District, so I know the issues that students face. We've talked about bullying, we've talked about mental health issues, a lot of trauma, the insecurities that come from trauma, and kids come to school, and the teachers, they're being overwhelmed. My dad, he works for Clark County School District. His name is Lorinda Harris. People call him Sergeant Harris. And we talk all the time. And it's like he's a bus driver right now. And it's like bus drivers are overwhelmed. Teachers are overwhelmed. Principals are overwhelmed. So it's going to take the community to change what the kids are going through and change how the kids are behaving. And our slogan at NYM is to catch a kid before the system does. Because that's really what it's all about. Because right now, the kids if they don't have the correct guidance, we all know what's going to happen to them as an adult. They're going to go down the wrong path. So we just wanted to introduce ourselves and ask for support when we come into the schools, so you guys will know who we are, you recognize the name and stuff like that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
After Chris Woodward is Katie Baker Johnson.
During his time in CCSD, Dr. Means would often say that a system is perfectly built for the results that it gets. This idea is echoed in my thoughts over the last month or so, as leaders in the district have taken turns acknowledging harm done to the trust of the community. At last month's board meeting, I spoke, welcoming the words of district leaders and their acknowledgement the mistakes were made in the handling of Principal Penley's removal. In last month's board meeting, I also acknowledged that speaking of the harm and making steps towards repairing broken trust are 2 distinct steps. True healing does not start until there's a commitment to action. With Oglethorpe Elementary, we again see an acknowledgement of harm, followed by words committing to do better. We're sorry is not a plan. And an apology without change is nothing but an empty gesture. A pattern of apologies absent change systematically sidelines stakeholders in favor of the whims of those at the top. I'm not asking for leadership to relinquish their decision-making responsibilities, though I am asking for community building that extends beyond checking boxes. I am asking for an acknowledgement of the harm inflicted onto our learning communities, by an administration grown ungainly in size and immeasurable in distance from students, parents, and teachers. Specifically, I am asking for an acknowledgement of this harm shaped not by the sound of words, but rather through action of change. I'm asking for a true commitment to CCSD employees, both certified and classified, with an understanding that those of us in schools are the work they should be centered around. For board members, I ask you to review these requests I just mentioned and understand that these are district strategic priorities 2, 3, and 4. For board members today, I ask that you measure the district's failure in meeting the commitments put forth by leadership in these strategic priorities and consider your responsibilities in terms of accountability, policy, and budgeting. As a final set of disconnected thoughts, I wish to acknowledge a problematic statement included in the Oglethorpe letter to the community. As written in the letter, recognizing the challenges of navigating age-appropriate conversations in an elementary classroom, district administrators advised the school to have the teacher relocate the artwork in the classroom, and that was in the letter. This issue originated with district administrators, and the concerns should have been vetted at the district level. There was no reason for this to come back to the school, and this is yet another sign of the dysfunction of district leadership. Further, what does age-appropriate mean when it comes to acknowledging that it's okay to be gay? The suggestion that elementary schools should hide LGBTQ acceptance from lower grades because it's not age-appropriate is insulting and does not fit with the overall values of our community. In closing, considering the many issues raised tonight, there are many ways to build community-focused schools in which staff members, parents, and students have legitimate seats at the table. Relationships are not built in isolation, though, and our system, I believe, is perfectly built for the results that we're getting. It's well past time for fundamental change.
Thank you. Katie Baker-Johnson, and after Katie is Amy Walden.
Hello, I've got a lot of heroes up here, but I've got to say, Dr. T, I love you. Thank you for our service, and I just love this board. So another round of applause for Dr. T. That's my girl. All right, so I'm coming to you today because I will never forget the time that I first met Stacy Dean at Cedar Shoals High School. My mentor teacher, 8 years ago, Beth Tatum, told me, Katie, if you need anything, reach out to Stacy Dean. He will take care of you. Stacy Dean was one of her students, and he was a graduate of Cedar Shoals High School. And lucky for me, Stacy Dean was positioned right outside my classroom for many years. Stacy Dean was a mentor to me, but more importantly, he was a mentor to students. Many times, kids who are traumatized or have a lot going on, bullying or family issues, sometimes they were about to snap or they were about to fight. And all I would have to do is stick my head out the door and ask Mr. Dean to take the students on a walk. And suddenly the trauma and anger that those students felt melted away under his countenance. What y'all probably don't know is Mr. Dean, after 14 years of service in Clark County, decided to not come back this year. His two sons were about to graduate high school, and he was realizing that he did not have a retirement. Why? In his words, he said, "Why should I continue to invest in this district if the district does not invest in me?" We didn't just lose an employee and former graduate in Stacy Dean. We lost a father to many children who do not have fathers. Right now, parapros with 14 years in this district are making $20,000 a year and taking home less than $14,000 a year, making less than $14 an hour after up to 20 years in this county. There's no such thing as unskilled labor. If they have served our children faithfully, they deserve better. Offer all employees the same retirement as teachers, 60% of their salary after 30 years. UGA has recently moved to move all their certified staff into TRS, but we continue to use a terrible retirement system called Public School Employee Retirement System. I've talked to a bus driver who worked for this county for 30 years, and she takes home $6,000 a year only in retirement, that being only $500 a month. Right now, as a district, we need to commit to start employees at $15 an hour. We need to make it so our nurses get the $2,000 that the educators are promised, because if we don't invest in our people right now, our children are the ones who are going to suffer. Thank you so much.
Amy is up, and after Amy is Kat Mills.
Call an executive session to listen to the lived experiences of your lowest paid workers. There you will find what King described in a Birmingham jail. We are caught in an inescapable network of mutuality, tied in a single garment of destiny. Whatever affects one directly affects all indirectly. The dysfunction of this district is a direct result of refusing to listen to the people on the front lines. On December 15th, 3 former middle school principals who were previously removed to the district office walked our halls. It was sad to see all the faces of all the school leaders who couldn't live up to the Means-Gaskins-era regime of impossible standards. Many of these former leaders have new titles and now 6-figure director salaries. Stop doing that. All the new coordinators and middlemen created since 2016 must be reassigned to our school buildings to work directly with children, and you will find there the budget to pay our classified staff a living wage. Here are some other ways we can improve the conditions of our district. Solution 1, connections and elective classes could be cut to under 20 students and be provided SPED, ESOL, and gifted support collaborators. Solution 2, every teacher could get $1,000 a year for books, posters, field trips, and supplies. Solution 3, you could double the amount of counselors, 50 kids per 1 counselor instead of 400. Middle school was given 2 counselors last year, but so should the elementary schools. Solution 4, you could hire a social worker per school building, whereas they are split between 2 schools right now. Solution 5, you could make it against policy and practice for SPED and ESOL teachers to be pulled to sub before instructional coaches. This happened to me today. Solution 6, you could build back the partnership between UGA and CCSD. This year we only had 4 student teachers placed in 6th through 12th grade. Only 2 were approved at each major high school. This will be detrimental to long-term CCSD retention. Solution 7, you could stop paying ESS to find subs and instead just raise the pay of subs. Solution 8, you could pay elementary teachers when they sub like teachers who get paid when they sub at CMS, Cedar Shoals, and Clark Central. Make this a district policy and not up to building leaders' discretion who and how they exploit their staff.
Kat Mills, and after Kat is Deborah Brenner.
Solution 9, you could offer hazard pay or expand the amount of free counseling sessions offered. This month, we or our coworkers fell ill. Their children fell ill. Our children fell ill. An acknowledgement of our humanity and shared trauma would help restore us in some capacity. Also, acknowledge the shared trauma students have experienced. Half of our elementary students, grades pre-K through 2nd, have never had a normal school year due to the pandemic, and expecting business as usual as far as pacing and assessments ignores students' humanity and social emotional needs. Multiple students have lost loved ones to COVID, and at least one of our young students were hospitalized for it. Solution 11, cut funding for iReady. Cut funding for iReady, or use it instead monthly, and not every day during what was once enrichment or advisement time. Solution 12, for K through 8th, mandate outside time or play for 30 to 45 minutes in every school. Solution 13, hire enough teachers to stop using E2020 after kids fail classes, and instead build small cohorts of remediation classes, or at least bring back repeat 9th grade English so kids could learn to read and write before they graduate CCSD schools. Solution 14, collaborative classes need to be half the size of advanced classes in order to truly meet the IEPs of our youth. Solution 15, expand the accessibility and opportunities or modify the methods of qualifications for students of color to gain access to gifted services and advanced classes in both middle school and high school. Solution 16, include a planning period free from meetings every day where our teachers can step out of the building, attend to planning, grading, and all of our professional obligations. MLK once said that a riot is the language of the unheard. He continued by saying that America was failing to hear that the promises of freedom and justice have not been met. Clark County has the opportunity to finally meet those promises for every student and every teacher instead of remaining more concerned about tranquility and the status quo. Now is that time. Listen to the voices of your unheard.
Thank you. Sandy Cedarbaum? Or did I skip? Deborah, okay. That's okay. Deborah, and then next is Sandy Cedarbaum.
Hello, my name is Deborah Brenner, and I serve in two capacities: as a board member of the Athens Anti-Discrimination Movement, and tonight as a committee member of the Social Action Committee of the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Athens. At our last Social Action Committee, our regularly scheduled meeting of February 6, 2022, unanimously, the Social Action Committee passed the following resolution. We, the members of the Social Action Committee of the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Athens, Georgia, in light of recent events at Oglethorpe Avenue Elementary School involving the display of student artwork, urge the Clark County School District, the Clark County School Board of Education, and all persons associated with them to be unequivocal in their support of all human rights in general and of LGBTQ+ rights in particular and the free expression thereof. Therefore, be it resolved that the Social Action Committee of the UUFA condemns the recent actions by certain identified administrators of Oglethorpe Avenue Elementary School who marginalize the identity of LGBTQ+ students, educators, and educational support professionals by asking that a drawing of a rainbow flag be relocated, and who equated the symbol of love with the symbol of hate, a Nazi swastika. Therefore, be it resolved that the Social Action Committee of the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Athens, Georgia, asks that the administrators involved offer a formal written apology to the Oglethorpe Avenue Elementary School faculty and staff, and furthermore receive appropriate training to be able to distinguish and mitigate when undue harm is being done not only to students, but also to educators and educational support professionals concerning suppressing the free expression of human rights in general and the LGBTQIA+ rights in particular.
Sandy, and after Sandy is Patrick Sheridan.
Hi, my name is Sandy Cedarbaum, and I'm the president of CMS PTA. Last month, I, as well as a number of other parents, teachers, community members, spoke about the sudden and unexplained removal of our principal, Mr. Penley. I do appreciate the board calling an executive session during last month's meeting, and I hope that some of the concerns that the community mentioned were discussed by the board. The called meeting last week seemed to indicate that our voices were heard and that you're working to fix some of the issues that were mentioned by the community, possibly by policy changes to hold the superintendent accountable, as well as a plan to communicate better with the community. So thank you for that. That being said, I do want to reiterate tonight that Mr. Penley's removal has caused a disruption at CMS, and that we as a community feel frustrated that we have still not gotten any information as to why this happened. I personally would like to know which of the standards for highly effective principals that is used in the principal selection process was not met by Mr. Penley, and what evidence was used in this decision. As a parent that has had the opportunity to spend a great deal of time working with those at CMS, I can say that since his removal, I personally feel very separate from the school and the teachers. This is not a reflection on Dr. Gorham or the teachers at CMS, just the abrupt change that has occurred. It leads one to step back and wait to see what other unforeseen event will happen next. I wonder if many of the teachers are feeling the same, and I fear how many will not return in this climate. I also wanted to take a moment tonight to speak about the inequities that were recently brought to light between facilities for male and female students or athletes at Clark Central. As a parent of an 8th grader who played for Central's softball team, I was surprised to find out there is no place for them to store their softball gear. Instead, they were expected to bring their gear along with their school bag daily to school. If not for Ms. Hinger, who allowed them to store their gear in the library during the day, they would have been expected to carry it with them throughout the school day, every day. Midway through the season, Coach Lance was able to get one of the storage sheds cleared so they could leave their gear there. However, the shed has no lockers, hooks, shelves, nothing, just a bare concrete floor that gets wet in big rains, which can ruin gear left on the ground. While it seemed odd to me, given that they had just built a new softball stadium, I thought it was just the way it was for all sports. After reading the Odyssey article, I realized I was wrong. Baseball has converted one of their sheds into a locker room where they can safely store their gear, change, and hide out during extreme weather. Softball does not have this option because their new storage sheds were built smaller. Currently, the softball team has to wait in line. Sorry, thank you.
Thank you. Patrick? And after Patrick is Brent Andrews.
Good evening, members of the board. Thank you for allowing me to speak today. I am here to address the recent homophobic incident at Oglethorpe Avenue Elementary School as one of your constituents. This incident is not only a moral wrong, but as a PhD student in history, I know it to be a historical wrong as well. Let me explain. I think we all know what was said. While the swastika has a long history, most people associate it with the 20th century regime of Nazi Germany. Given that regime's treatment of LGBT people, this comparison is especially disturbing. It is estimated that 50 to 60,000 gay men were arrested for their sexuality by this regime, with 5 to 15,000 being placed in concentration camps. An estimated 60% of the latter perished in those camps. Because I'm a historian, I'll cite my source, Richard Plant's book, The Pink Triangle. I feel this incident offers Clark County School District an opportunity to not only increase awareness of Nazi persecution of homosexuals, but of LGBTQ history in general. I strongly urge you to consider curricular changes in this regard. As someone who had to hide their identity in school, I know full well the value of visibility. Additionally, I'd like you to reconsider not disciplining the administrator involved. Thank you.
Thank you. Brent is up, and after Brent is Chaplain Cole Napper.
Hi, Brent Andrews from Cedar Shoals. District leaders expect teachers to use curriculum maps which detail each unit week by week, utilize backward design by developing unit assessments before providing instruction, provide extremely detailed lesson plans prior to each week of instruction, and provide rationales for their various instructional decisions, not only in their lesson plans, but also in weekly PLC meetings with a coach. In light of the myriad ways teachers are held accountable to school and district leaders, where's the accountability of district leaders to our community? What rubrics and tools are used to evaluate their effectiveness? Teachers are never consulted about district-wide instructional decisions. We are constantly infantilized by district leaders and are often the last to know about programs and choices which will dictate many aspects of classroom instruction. On orders from CCSD leaders, instructional coaches act more as babysitters, enforcing unilateral district mandates that as collaborators in an authentic process of professional growth. Teachers have been told for several years that teams are not allowed to discuss instruction during PLC meetings, only data. Anyone who is unable to see the connection between instructional practices and data gathered from students is not qualified to lead district instructional processes. Beginning 2 years ago, district leaders throughout several years have sustained ELA thematic unit development and forced a new curriculum map upon us, despite many concerns raised by teachers. The only explanation offered for this massive shift was a false interpretation of the standards that 75% of ELA instruction must be informational. Nowhere do the standards imply this. However, end-of-course tests and other standardized assessments do favor informational readings, and test scores are all that CCSD seems to care about. In August 2021, ELA 11 teachers were told by coaches that there would be no writing component on the interim, so we created and gave our own writing assessment. 1 week before we were to give the interim, we discovered not only that there was a writing component, but that the district test mistakenly included a narrative prompt when we'd been teaching informative, explanatory writing. Even after the district supposedly corrected it, we discovered that the writing prompt was persuasive and had a completely different grading criteria. We were literally done teaching the Unit 1 material when we discovered this and had to give a crash course on counter-arguments and persuasive writing in order for students to be successful. Given that district leadership has been churning out a chaotic comedy of errors for the past 2 years, how is the BOE evaluating its one employee? Will teachers be surveyed on their perspectives regarding district priorities and effectiveness? In searching for CCSD's superintendent's evaluation rubric, I discovered a 101-page document published by Clark County School District in Las Vegas, detailing the BOE's evaluation of their superintendent. How will this BOE share its superintendent's evaluation with our community? Thank you.
Thank you. Chaplain Cole is up. Next is, after Chaplain Cole, is Jacqueline Adams.
Good evening. My name is Chaplain Cole Napper, and I was born and raised right here in Athens, Georgia. Both of my parents are retired Clark County School District educators. My mother, Joanne, a 5th grade English teacher. My father, Charles, a high school principal. Both of my parents hold multiple advanced degrees from the University of Georgia. I attended Whitehead Road Elementary School and graduated from Clark Central High School, where I served as student body president and took advanced placement American history and European history classes. After graduating from the historically black Spelman College in Atlanta, Georgia, I proudly served in 4 post-9/11 tours of duty in support of operations in Iraq and Afghanistan, including the last one in which was over a decade ago, where I served as a company commander in command of troops in Afghanistan. For my service, I was awarded 2 Bronze Star medals and a combat infantryman's badge years before they would allow women to serve in combat. In addition to my military service, I'm proud to be a woman from Athens, Georgia, who holds 3 master's degrees, 2 of which are from the Ivy League. So today I stand before you as many things. I am a high school science teacher, a researcher, a historian, and I have taught in some of the most elite schools in the country. And so the title that I love the most is educator. Everything that I have, I owe to the education that Athens Clark County Schools prepared me for. So it hurts my heart to see just how far behind some of our children in this area have become. But I stand before you tonight shaking my head and saying, as someone who loves Athens, Georgia, go Dogs, that as an Afghanistan veteran You all should know that I took an oath to support my country and protect it against all enemies, both foreign and domestic. Ladies and gentlemen, friends and neighbors, that enemy is hate and ignorance. The only way that we can fight back is to use peaceful, nonviolent social actions and educate ourselves and our children. We need to let love in, loving our neighbors as we love ourselves. I come from a faith tradition that says, whatever you do for the least of these, my brothers and sisters of mine, you did for me. I am here tonight to thank you, each and every board member, for your service and dedication to the children of this community. This is not an easy job, and these are not easy times. But I say to each of you, thank you. Keep your eyes on the prize. Thank you.
Thank you. Jacqueline Adams, and after Jacqueline will be our last speaker, Laura McGreevy. Jacqueline? All right. Laura? Is that okay?
I'm Laura, a parent of 4 teens who have attended CCSD from pre-K through high school for the last 12 years. I'm also a teacher at Hillsman. I'm grateful for excellent, dedicated teachers my children have had, and I'm proud to work alongside so many. In planning for next year, I learned that the district is cutting 3.5 teacher positions from Hillsman. I was shocked and frankly frightened for our community. We are working so hard to provide for our students while feeling constantly understaffed. We have lost teachers this year who simply could not take or could not stand for the very stressful, sometimes unsafe working conditions. Those of us who have remained bear the weight, hopeful that leaders are making plans for relief. Our admin are constantly present throughout the building, always thinking of new ways to stretch our dedicated staff without totally exhausting or driving any more away. Now we're asked to do more with less. Our current student enrollment is 679. Our projected student enrollment is 700. Student needs are diverse. 21% have disabilities, 17.3% gifted, 6% ESOL. Taking away the number of caring adults in a school building hurts our kids, our families, our teachers, our communities. It also puts more strain on those who remain, further intensifying our staffing issues and depriving our students. If the focus of our districts is generally on the needs of students, I beg you, please ensure that we have enough staff to meet their needs. If you must cut, please reduce district office positions, not our front line. Please reduce demands that pull teachers away from serving our students' actual needs. Please work towards retaining and attracting the teachers and support staff we need by paying a living wage for all and providing reasonable, safe working conditions for teaching and learning. Teachers, admin, and support staff are already overstretched. In the midst of pondering ways to make our learning community better, we are alarmed to learn that the district is considering a move that would make conditions worse. Please deeply contemplate the whole picture of the quality of school life for our kids when determining student-to-staff ratios. The well-being of our community depends on it. Thank you.
Thank you to all of our public speakers. We will move forward to item 5, and this is the board's president report. I don't have any updates that are new from last week. Dr. Anderson, do you have any that? Do you want to ask about this? If we want to have it before? Oh, yes. Okay, thank you. The GSBA retreat. Remember, we sort of mentioned that, and are you all wanting to do our retreat the day before or after.
What day would the day before be, and what day would the day
Let me
after be?
see if I can
I
pull it up.
believe it's the 8th of June, so it would be that Thursday before the conference starts. Either the Wednesday or the Thursday.
Yes.
Oh, so June the 9th on that Thursday?
Mm-hmm.
And would the expectation be that we travel a day early?
Right.
Okay.
Depends really on like what the board, like if we want to put that time, if we want to do 1 or 2 days, and if we want to put them before the GSBA conference or after, or if we're feeling we need to split them up. This just came from an earlier conversation several months ago when we decided to, the board collectively decided to forego the retreat in January and only do the one during the summer.
So as a newbie, my thought would be, let's move it until after the conference. With the one school board conference that I've gone to, there's been so much information that I could not wait to come back and share. And I think that's been the experience of some of the other board members. So having the retreat afterwards would actually give us an opportunity to discuss some of the things that we've learned and put it into play. So that's what my thought is.
Other thoughts? Ms. Palmer, you were going to say something. Okay, so really it's the 9th, 10th, and 11th for those, okay. And Ms. Hall, am I hearing you say you would prefer that 12th or after, one or, okay.
Yes.
Okay, other thoughts about the number of days after that, or when, about what Ms. Hall said?
I agree with Attorney Hull.
As do I. I think, again, the conferences themselves just lend so much opportunity for us to take a fresh look at things. And I would ask that we have a facilitated session so that we can make the most of that time. And if there are some specific things that we want to address during that session, if we could have that ahead of time, that would be awesome.
I like that as well.
Okay, and so what I hear, or 3 people-ish feel that after, okay?
And I would suggest 1 day.
All right, any others I haven't shared? Mr. Davis, Ms. Gallagher, Dr. Dykeman?
Are we talking about immediately after or just sometime after?
No, immediately.
It would be immediately. Mm-hmm.
I see.
So staying in Savannah,
I
because
see.
Julie would facilitate.
I didn't hear you, Dr. Dykeman. What did you say?
I was just asking if we were talking about immediately after the conference. So, and yeah, the answer was yes, that it would take place there immediately after the conference.
So just to clarify, we're saying the full day of the 12th is when we will meet in Savannah to have our retreat, and Julie will facilitate. Okay?
Yes.
Has that already been arranged?
No. Mm-mm. So, and that's why I mentioned last week, if there were any like specific, or even I think maybe earlier, if there are any specific topics, particularly for that full day. Now, it will be an opportunity, and Ms. Davis and Mr. Davis, you all can, and Ms. Palmer, I think we should get our hours in, right, just from the conference itself. And so we do have some, we have some leeway as far as like who we want to facilitate what. If there are specific topics, I mean, so if there are concrete things that you would like and you're feeling that, we need to split that facilitation, if we want GSBA or Julie to do something and there's some other topic that we really need to tackle, then, that option is there too. But we would need to hear, because what we'll do is just start working on, trying to secure the space and go ahead and try to put together like a tentative agenda to send out for you all's thoughts.
So I guess my question would be, with the facilitation piece, would that only be done by GSBA, or is that open to people from NSBA? I know we're no longer associated with them, or other people outside of GSBA is what I'm asking.
I think it's up to us. I do think we have, professional development funds. Now, I know this is the first time in a while, or I don't know when, that we would use a chunk of it, but we still have some professional development funds. And so I think it's really around like the topic and, if there are individuals that we, feel could help facilitate conversation on that topic, things like that. And of course, we'll probably carve out some time too, like for more so governance, like, an hour or so or two to review our norms and see if there are any changes there and things like that. But as far as topics, it really is going to depend on the board.
So is there a process outlined if I have a topic in mind, which I do, and a facilitator in mind, which I do? Is there a directed process to get that to you all, or to get that to the board?
There's no process as far as like policy is concerned and beyond policy. No, we've just generally, for a long time, we've been in such a place with professional development that it's either been about our hours or professional development regarding Cognia. And I'm not saying that those things aren't important. We'll get our hours, at the conference. And we have some professional development directly related to our Cognia feedback for this semester, and we'll, look into next semester as well. And of course, we're still awaiting the report. And so if there's something concrete there that we need to do, we will have the flexibility to wrap that into the retreat or just to do it at a different time as a separate professional development. So I say all that to say, no, there's no process. If there is a topic and you feel that, you want to toss it out there for the board to consider, that would be fine.
Thank you.
I think it's important for us to hear different voices as we go through this journey of trying to grow into the best board that we can be and address the concerns that have been brought to us. So I would definitely ask that we stay flexible on that decision until we have enough information to go by. We will have our feedback from Cognia by that time. We'll be in the middle of a superintendent search by that time. We'll be ending a school year by that time. And so I think we'll have our board, our plate looks a little bit differently. And we'll be just prior to the budget decision, or the budget vote. So I think that gives us a pretty full plate to get through in a professional development session that would allow us to actually deliver the best products out of that. So that's my recommendation. I know in the past we have had also a relationship with the Fanning Institute, I believe it is, at the University of Georgia. They have facilitators. And so, again, just some neutrality might help.
Yeah. And so I would say if there are any ideas that you have, like share them with the full board. I think we still have a little time. As we get into March, we're talking about 2 months away if we're trying to, or maybe is that 3, trying to secure like a person to come and do professional development. But I think we have some time. And so if over these next couple of weeks you have some topics, put it out to the full board and we can very well get a consensus at that work session. But we'll go ahead and start building the structure, like the facilities and things like that. Securing the facilities and, all of the things that probably we need to go ahead and do.
I like that. Thank you.
And not just topics, but if there are any ideas that you have as far as like what you would want to see on the agenda and things like that, share that with us, and then we can bring it back during that work session and almost sort of put a tentative, some tentative topics and agenda items in place.
Good.
Okay. Thank you. We'll move forward to the superintendent's report.
Yes, ma'am. So just a couple of announcements. So the first one is a big one. So CCSD is partnering with the University of Georgia, the AU-UGA Medical School, and the Georgia Department of Public Health to bring our second school-based health clinic to our students. So our Director of Nursing, Amy Rorick, she assisted the UGA Medical Partnership in applying for a grant to kickstart this project. The grant will be awarded for the new school-based health clinic located at Clark Middle School. So we'll have one on the east side and one on the west side. A pilot program for the health center will begin August 22nd, ahead of the renovations happening at Clark Middle. But a permanent clinic will be built into the new building, so that would be a part of the design. So we're just excited about this partnership and the plan to increase health and wellness services available to all of our CCS students and staff.
Awesome.
Our second announcement is related to CCSD Connect. I believe, share an email with all of our board members that our request for proposal for the CCSD Connect program is now available. So publicly, we are seeking experienced organizations or individuals to provide innovative enrichment and educational programs for our students that are attending our CCSD schools. So it is important that we know that the request for proposal process can sometimes be cumbersome, but there's an optional pre-proposal conference that will be facilitated for all vendors that are interested in applying for the RFP on February 21st at 9:30 a.m., and that is a virtual training. So you can go to our website to learn more and receive the RFP, and we'll be including the information about the program in our weekly update that comes out tomorrow.
Did you say February the 21st?
21st, February
Okay.
21st, yes, ma'am.
Okay.
And then just our last update related to COVID testing. So beginning tomorrow, CCSD will be offering daily COVID testing opportunities. So these testing clinics will be held daily, Monday through Friday, 11 a.m. through 1 p.m. at different school locations each day. So every school will participate over the next 4 weeks, and a schedule can be found on our website. These testing events will offer both rapid antigen tests as well as our PCR tests with results 24 to 48 hours, and they will be open to the entire CCSD community. So staff, students, and family members of staff and students will be able to participate in this testing. Staff, students, and family members of staff, so staff and students can complete the consent form online for the CCSD COVID, at the CCSD COVID page during the scheduled times, and no appointment is necessary. So we just really want to encourage people that if they do need a test, that over the next 4 weeks, all of our schools will have a testing day, and those tests will be available to them. And that concludes my announcements.
Any follow-up questions or comments for Mr. Gaskins? Ms. Gallagher?
I do. So these are just questions. Where are we on hiring a PR person?
I would have to ask Dr. Harris to come up. We've had a conversation. We met, our chief of HR, Dr. Harris, we met last Thursday, I believe, to discuss that process.
We have posted for the PR director. We're restructuring that position to potentially look at how we can provide additional support for the communications department. We currently do not have any candidates. So I believe that is all the update I'm able to give.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, my next one is where are we on hiring our chief of police?
So we made a decision that we were going to hire our chief of operations first. So Mr. Fisher is working with us until May. The chief of police reports to the chief of operations. So we actually will be bringing a candidate forward to the board meeting in March for approval of the chief of operations. Once that person is on board, we will want that person to collaborate with the district to pick that chief of police. So hopefully, depending on that individual's schedule, we may be able to bring the chief of police and the chief of operations both to our March board meeting.
Okay, last one. So last Wednesday at our call meeting, I asked about an equity person, and you said y'all were in discussion. Where's the discussion?
So I brought that discussion to Dr. Thomas, who will be back next week, and she is fully supportive of that. She said that she did have some conversations with other board members about that position in the past, and she's had that conversation with Dr. Watley. So ultimately, Dr. Thomas will make that decision moving forward.
Thank you. I had a question about the CCSD Connect program information, and I don't know if you just said that. I was kind of looking at the same time. I know that it's available under COVID info on the website, but when we were in the advisory committee meeting last night, we talked about maybe putting it on the front page also, or as a banner on the front page. So I just wanted to make sure that was somewhere that people could easily find that information.
Yes, and if you all have the link, I know some board members already mentioned this week that they would share that link. We just want to share that out as much as possible, but we will make sure that it's in a prominent location on our website. And so just for the community to know that they must request that packet from Veronica Jackson. When you go to the link, it has her email. She's very efficient. So if they send her an email, she will quickly send them the packet that they need to do the formal request.
There were a couple of things that we brought up at the work session that I wanted to sort of follow up on and see if there's any progress that's been made. The first was the partnership with ACC, if you all have had any conversations. The first one is the partnership with ACC. If you all as a district have had any further conversations since our work session.
So I've had conversations with the board, but specifically with Dr. Thomas. So Dr. Thomas will be back on Tuesday, and so we would just want to finalize that, and then we'll share it, of course, with the board once she's ready to share what we've come up with.
Okay, appreciate it. I just wanted to follow up. And then the second, it was just a clarification. In the meeting that we had where you all rolled out the CCSD Connect information, there seemed to be a question about whether those funds could cover athletics. And at that meeting, the response was yes, if there was a justification that it had a curricular attachment to it. And then in the email that was sent earlier this week, the answer was no. So perhaps maybe clarify which one it is?
So the answer is yes for elementary and middle school. The grant cannot support secondary athletics. That's the clarification that we received from the state. So if they have a proposal that can support K through 8, we can do that. It just can't support the athletics. I'm sorry, the athletics at high school. It can support athletics at the other grades.
And now I have another question about that. Does that mean it can't support like organized athletics through the high schools? Could it support a program that involved some sort of sport at the high school level, but not
like an extramural?
Yeah, or just like some program that
intramural.
involved some sort of athletics.
We can look into that. If there's an organization that has like an intramural sport, like something like Ultimate Frisbee, which is not recognized by GHSA.
So it just can't be a part of the GHSA. It
I don't
can't
want to
support
misspeak.
anything that.
That is my assumption,
Okay.
but I think if there's anyone that has a request, if they can just reach out to Jamie Washington and Veronica, we can quickly research that for them. Because that would be great for our kids. So whatever we can do for our kids, which is in compliance, we'll make happen.
Another reason why they can't support high school is because of the NCAA. If there was NCAA sports, football, basketball, baseball, soccer, then if the NCAA saw that we was funding money to those student athletes, it would be out of compliance. So that's another reason they can't support sports at the high school level.
You can stay. I have a question. What? Don't go. Don't go. What are we gonna do to address this issue at Clark Central? with the athletes in the locker rooms? Has there been a discussion? Is there a plan to be a discussion?
Yes, so actually Meredith Paget called me this morning to say that, to give me some information on that. She sent me an email that I want to go over with Mr. Fisher that we're going to put in the board update, because a lot of those things have already been addressed. It was a level of specificity that I couldn't comprehend all of the things that she told me. But a lot of those things have been addressed. I know Mr. Fisher and a team were there. Was it today, Mr. Fisher, or?
We met with them actually last year sometime, did a complete walkthrough of all their athletic facilities and figure out what we need to do to equalize the locker rooms for our females. We're gonna have to, from a school perspective, at Clark Central and City Shows, we're gonna have to do some expansion in order to comply with our female athletes. So we're gonna have to do some of those things moving forward. But in the short term, we look at some things that we can do to sort of solve some of those issues. We have not solved all those issues, but we're starting that way, in that direction.
We have a plan?
We do. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but yes. So in the board update tomorrow, we'll tell you what we've already addressed and then what's left to be addressed.
Thank you.
Yeah, we were, with the COC, we talked extensively over the years about the athletic programs at Clark Central and Cedar Shoals and equalizing it in new buildings and tracks and all that kind of thing. I don't remember this ever coming up as an issue in terms of space and at Clark Central. And are we going to make sure that as we're constructing in Cedar Shoals that we're not going to step into it again?
Yeah, since you missed our last work session, we talked about that, making sure that we have equalized space for our female athletes at Cedar Shoals moving forward. Actually, that was one of the things I suggested and have talked about. Any thing that we build from an athletic standpoint, we need to make sure that our female athletes have the same facilities moving forward. So over at Cedar Shoals in the new field house, there should be adequate space for our female athletes.
Okay.
I want to encourage you to go back and listen to that.
I did
So that
listen.
so then you already know that it is built for the football team and it's majority male usage of that building.
So I have a quick question. Do we have a Title IX coordinator?
Yeah, that's Meredith.
Okay.
Yeah, Meredith Paget.
So that's 100% the equity in female
Yes, ma'am.
facilities?
Yes.
Okay, great. So maybe we can add that to one of our reports that we get in terms of what's happening in that arena.
And I think one of our master plan going forward, we just need to do a whole overall look at what we have with our facilities when it comes to all our athletes. Unfortunately, I'll be gone in May, and hopefully my predecessor and I will have that conversation to make sure that we do that moving forward and it be part of our master plan. Anytime we're building things from a sporting perspective, then we need to make sure our female athletes are included in that.
So I'm going to suggest an audit.
Right.
Thank you.
I was actually going to ask if we could get follow-up next month on what the timeline is for fixing the situation at Clark Central. So rather than waiting until May, can the situation have at least a temporary solution through the school year and then work on a permanent solution moving forward?
So we'll meeting with them next week to do another walkthrough. And like Mr. Gaston said, some of those things have already been addressed. So I need to go back over there and figure out if something changed after we left. And I can't answer that, but we are doing a walkthrough next week.
And I want to, if I could, just sort of, as you all are figuring out the timeline, and I know there is urgency, and so I know we have to balance that urgency, but I also want to encourage you, and I think I hear you saying this, is being sure, we're getting input from the people impacted. So I know there's urgency from the board, but I don't want that urgency to take away from the people that are directly impacted by it. And so I do want to just sort of add sort of a different voice. I think a plan would be great, but if a plan is not possible and if you all have not met and been able to meet and hear from as many voices as possible with the parents and the females that are impacted, then I would ask, there's some intention there. And so I don't want that urgency to have us miss voices, basically. And then we're back here, we're deciding for people. I know there's a parameter within the law, but I also just want to be sure that people are heard beyond us.
Yes, ma'am.
So my last question, I know we have building committees when we're about to go into SPLOST and spend lots and lots of money, and it's community people, it's teachers, it's everybody, right? What happens to those committees once the work is done, and is there an ongoing group at the school level that can help with this? Because I'm surprised that we have so many things that are underway and there's no awareness of the people that are in the building.
In the past, from my knowledge, once we've completed a project, normally that, and Mr. Gasson, you correct me if I'm wrong, normally that project then falls back on that building leader for keeping people involved and make sure that their school is run the right way. We're there to support them based on the needs that they request of us. So, again, to answer your question, that group goes away.
Okay.
So, but the building leader continue to stay involved and make sure things are getting done and that we support them.
I would want us to have a more direct contact on that going forward, but that's, we'll have to put that in policy somewhere, because I think we keep adding things for the building leaders to do and we don't give them any more support in getting it done. So I would like to maybe have a conversation about that at some point.
And can you clarify, Mr. Fisher, I'm just thinking of this as we're having this conversation, the COC,
Community
right?
oversight.
Because that would be a committee. I'm just sort of thinking of some of the systems and processes and committees that we already have. That would be a place perhaps too that this would be discussed. Don't they keep like some oversight on, or is it just the current SPLOST projects?
Well, no, and then old projects too. We always update, and Ms. Davis has been to those meetings. We always update any old projects that we have done, and then the new projects coming forward. I think with the COC, from their perspective, is they sort of look at things moving forward. What we get ready to build, when we get use splash monies for whatever, whether it's buy buses, replace laptops, buy desktops. So they're part of that moving forward based on when that group was put together. And I was one of the original COC members when I was working at UGA. So that group was to oversee the SPLOST funding for our buildings. So, but they do keep up. I mean, we share information with them on a monthly basis.
So I don't want to belabor the point, but in light of this discussion, I do want us to look at the Cedar Shoals Field House, because as I look at this floor plan, it does not appear to be equitable in terms of what's provided for the female locker rooms and offices. I'm counting toilets, I'm counting showers, I'm counting space, and it does not seem to be equitable. So just in case I'm reading it wrong, I would really like for us to make sure that as we spend this money and we make these plans and we're cognizant of these issues, that we don't continue to repeat what we've already done. And if I'm reading it wrong, I apologize, but as I look at the floor plan, I don't think I am.
Okay. So what we'll do is in March at our work session, we'll bring that back to you all. And again, we'll meet with the team over at the Cedar Shoals to make sure that we can provide adequate space for our female athletes.
Thank you. And the only other, I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Okay.
And let me just remind us that myself first, any concerns that we have, we can share those concerns with Dr. Thomas directly. And that's at any time. And so I do want to just sort of circle back and encourage myself and encourage us to be sure we're reaching out, because sometimes even in meetings, a lot of stuff gets lost and then we have to go back and find it. But I want to encourage us to use the one-on-one access we have to be sure that we're advocating and sharing concerns and things of that nature. So that's just a plug for those individual meetings and phone calls and whatever it is, that we can do to be sure that we are sharing with her our concerns.
And the good thing about the Cedar Shoals project, we can always make, we're not so far along where we can't make adjustments, so we can do that, so. Yes, sir, Mr. Davis.
Yeah, and I don't know whether you or Mr. Gaskins can, I'm circling back around with Connect, because I don't think I understand, what athletics can qualify, what athletics can, I know about K-12, K-6, K-8, I got that. But in terms of, there's certain types
Mr. Davis,
of
can you speak in your microphone?
there's certain types of athletics that would be excluded from Connect?
So any athletics, so I guess the question from Dr. Dykeman was, are there athletics that are not recognized by GHSA that qualify for
with the high school association,
NCAA
yes.
eligibility? We would need to look into that. So it's a conflict for those high school athletic sports. So no high school athletic sports that we recognize, like volleyball, football, wrestling, softball, baseball. So Dr. Dykeman's question was, are there other athletic sports that are not recognized by NCAA? So we think that it may be yes, but that is something that we'll need to look into.
Well, I guess I'm saying if someone put a proposal out saying that they wanted a program that would sponsor 5th grade softball leagues throughout the county, is that something that would just be out of, basically be illegal?
It would not be.
That would not be illegal, because they'll not, I know I don't want to put everybody on the time, but once you start in the 9th grade, then the NCAA, then that 9th grader is qualified to gain a scholarship of the school. Whatever sport, that's male or female, whatever sport that they participate in. So the NCAA recognizes all those sports that give scholarships. It could be lacrosse, field hockey, soccer, track and field. But if we start putting money into those athletes, from our perspective, they can lose eligibility from a compliance standpoint. Now, if you're in the 3rd, 4th, 5th grade, the NCAA don't recognize those elementary kids. Now, and you all know, if y'all follow sports, they start looking at kids now in 7th, 8th grade, but they're not in that 9th grade high school level yet, so.
Okay, thank you. All right, does that conclude your report, Mr. Gaskins?
It does, thank you.
Okay, thank you. We will move forward to item 7. This is the approval of the December 2021 financial reports. Is there any additional information before we open the floor for a motion?
I'm sorry, what was that question?
If there were any additional comments or questions.
I do want to always commend Mr. Schoeneman for being so very succinct in his reporting and making it very understandable, so I appreciate that.
All right, thank you. The floor is open for a motion.
So moved. Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay, we have a motion by Ms. Davis, a second by Dr. Anderson. Any follow-up questions or comments? Okay, all in favor of approving the financial reports, if you would raise your hands and say aye. Aye. Any opposed, the same signs? And any abstaining? Okay, we'll move forward to our approval of personnel recommendations. Mr. Gaskins?
Yes, ma'am. It's my recommendation that we approve the personnel recommendations, item 1, and item 2 is addendum.
Thank you. The floor is open. Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Davis. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. All right, any questions?
Yes.
Yep.
Is this
Ms. Hall?
Is this the appropriate time to, I guess, ask about the termination of positions at Hillsman and how that affects our students? Or no?
Oh, what was that, Ms. Hall?
I want at the appropriate time to ask or inquire about the positions, the teacher positions being cut, and see how that affects our students.
So I definitely think it's a question that we can ask for the record, Mr. Gaskins to consider. I would encourage us to, if we want that as an agenda item, or particularly when we talk about our financial report, to sort of discuss that then. I don't know that you're prepared to be able to answer all questions tonight about that.
And I can withdraw that question. I'm just trying to figure out as a new board member where we get that information so that we can have those discussions when that information is presented, because I didn't know that until we had public comment tonight. And so if there is a document that I should look out for so that when that is circulated, we can start to ask those questions, I'd be more than happy to do that.
Yeah, so I think it's a combination of all of those. One would, going back to encouraging us to speak directly with the superintendent, and if that's a meeting individually or if it's a couple of board members. So I think those meetings naturally have the infrastructure to be able to share concerns. And even questions that we have about new information. So sometimes I write down like new stuff and just use that for my meetings. Also though, remember we do have the option too during our new business to, sort of talk about that, or if we want to add something under that financial report, or if we have specific questions. Because my guess is that it would probably be more than one, one question would lead to some other questions. And so, it can be added to the agenda, our future agenda, and then in the meantime, I think reaching out with any specific questions that you have in that meeting, but also sharing it with the board as well.
So, okay, I'm wrapping my head around it. So maybe a parking lot, you don't have to answer that now, but maybe as a parking lot for our retreat, having that discussion around how to make use of those meetings, because it's hard to ask questions when you don't know what to ask because you're not getting the information ahead of time. So I think that would be something I would like to learn more about during our retreat so that we can make the conversations effective.
Noted, yeah, and it definitely is a struggle, and I think it's both ways, right? If we get new information and then they get new questions, both of us sort of are at a place where we're not quite prepared to discuss at least our satisfaction. And so that's noted. Dr. Anderson, if you would note that as well, and we can certainly revisit that. But in the meantime, with that work session, if we know that there's an area of new business and you want to have that added, we can get the consensus of the board and do that. Mm-hmm.
I thank you for that clarity because I had the same question and I thought this would be the time because somehow they knew it and we didn't. So, I'm concerned about that as well.
And I'm sorry. So we had a spreadsheet that was sent to us, I think, before Dr. Thomas went on leave or something. Is that still out there? Because this is one that definitely would land on there as one of our future topics, and it would give the district an opportunity to prepare that to us. And so, the frightening thing is we heard it here, for me anyway, and the other thing is that it seems to signal something different happening in terms of, how the school is operating. And if it's going to be something that's really going to move us and take us forward, I would love for that to be a part of our presentations during our regular board meetings, because I think the community has a right to know and actually would be delighted to know where we're going to address the many challenges that we have at our schools. So if there's a change in direction that's targeting something specific, I think that's something to celebrate. Let's get that out there.
So, Dr. Gann, if I could just interject for a second. So, in full transparency, Dr. Blankenship and I met today around how we're finalizing the budget. And one of the recommendations that Dr. Blankenship brought is that how do we not cut multiple positions, and what do we need to reprioritize so we're not taking teachers away from the school? So I don't know how that got out to to whomever, made the comment. But our goal is, as we work on our final budget, is that if we can not cut these positions and reprioritize somewhere else, that's what we'll do. So we acknowledge, our conversation today was, if they lose, and it was other schools, so Hillsman is not the only school, but if this school loses this amount of teachers, what would be the impact? And we both mutually agreed that that would not be something that we're comfortable with. So we're just trying to figure out how we reprioritize our budget to save as many teachers as we can. We did that last year. We were supposed to lose 44 teachers based on our QBE allotment, and we were able to save all of them by reprioritizing our budget. We will use that same best practice this year. What Dr. Blankenship has done is try to make principals aware of that this is something that may happen, and we're going to try to work through it, but we don't want to surprise any principals. So I don't know if the principal of Hillsman shared that with her leadership team, but we just wanted to make them aware. But our intention is to save as many teaching positions as we can, if not all of them, as we did last year.
Thank you. Mr. Davis?
Yeah, I think.
Okay, I'm sorry. Okay, and then Dr. Dykeman?
Okay. Yeah, I think my question is, when's the best time for, for the board to examine teacher allotments, school enrollment by school? When's the best time for us to examine that data before the budget is kind of finalized? Because a lot of times, by the time we get the budget, we get the big picture. This is how we're going to spend, $168 million or something, and so we kind of lose the individual trees for the forest. So when, Mr. Gaskins, when's the best time for the board to maybe get a spreadsheet on teacher allotment, on enrollment? When's the best time for us to get that before things get on down the line in terms of the budget?
So I would have to defer to Mr. Schooneman, who has come up. I just want to make sure that what we are sharing and in full transparency is that what is appropriate for the board to have, access to. But if that is something that is appropriate, we would definitely share that. I'm not sure on what that timeline would be.
Okay.
There we go. So what we're talking about is the ramp, and I've mentioned it several times. It's a kind of a really analytical way to take student enrollment over time, project what's going to be next year, and take the earnings through the QBE formula. You earn positions. There's a multiplier effect because we not only receive state funding, we also have about 60% of our funding comes from property taxes. So we take that into consideration, and we have a crystal clear formula in that ramp on how many positions are earned throughout the district. So there are some pain points this year because last year we elected as a cabinet, as part of the budgeting process with COVID, we didn't feel comfortable that the student counts were indicative of something normal. We had COVID. Parents could have pulled their children out of schools for numerous reasons. We didn't know if those kids were going to come back. So we said, hey, we've got the ARP funds, we've got CARES 1 and CARES 2, and what we'll do is we will staff all of our schools equivalently to what we did the year before in FY21, and we use federal funds to do so. There's somewhat of a compounding effect this year because we didn't see the rebound of FTE, of student counts at all the schools as expected. At some schools, we actually saw a further decline. So now we're in a position of having to rebalance the teacher counts, and it is a painful process. So some schools gain teachers, those schools that increased student counts this year. We are awarding them with more teachers, more staff at their building, and other schools that had a decline in enrollment, they may have lost positions. And we know that this ramp is just a tool. So like it's step one in the allotment process. The second is looking at actual student to teacher counts, especially at the middle school. You know, we are revisiting the decline at middle school and exploring what we can do, what other fund sources we can do to supplement the general fund to maybe bridge that gap and fund some extra positions there, not through the general fund, but through other fund sources, so that we don't see the decline that the ramp would identify at the middle school. So all this to say, I'll be happy to do a presentation on the ramp. We've had it calculated since late November, so we know what the general fund can support in terms of what are we earning from the state, what are those dollars, what positions are earned. It's just a really analytical 1, 2, 3 calculation. Here's your earnings at the school. We have to layer on top of that, you know, some of our own judgment in what's happening at the schools and additional positions that are needed. So once again, it's just a tool, but I'll be happy to do some presentation. I don't know if the appropriate place is at the retreat, but we do have it in a pretty extensive Excel document that has all of the earnings for all of the schools that the general fund can support.
So my question, thank you, and I know that that's the process we've been through it a few times, but now the new pieces of supplementing when the general fund doesn't cover. We've had to do that when QBE didn't cover as well. Are we at this point in any school, and maybe you know this or not, but have we exceeded the federal guidelines on student-teacher ratio in any school in Clark County?
Maybe Brandon would be able to answer that question. Yeah.
Have we at any school in the district exceeded the student-teacher ratio that we have been following since I've been on this board?
No, ma'am.
So no school we haven't doubled up on classes permanently. That might be a temporary thing that has happened, but so far we are funding at the level that we are being funded to support.
Yes.
Do we have any class sizes over 25? Is that the number now?
The number is different at every grade band. That is some information that we could provide for you.
We've had that before.
In high school, sometimes it's not uncommon, depending on what the course is, that number might be high and other numbers might be low. I'm not sure offhand we can share that information with you, but we generally have very low class sizes here in Clark County.
Do we have any schools at risk of falling below that number that used to be magic that said your school is, you know, kind of on the list to be closed or something because you don't have enough students to support it?
And before you answer that, I'm going to actually encourage us to finish this item. If there are some things that we're at the board, we're at the personnel recommendations. And so if the board would like further conversation, I think we have to balance that. I don't want to shut down conversation, but there is also protocol and order, and we have an agenda. And so, Mr. Gaskins, if you would answer that question. I think I saw one other question, and I'm going to encourage us to go ahead and take the vote on item 8.
Thank you, and I apologize for taking us down that road.
Mr. Schoeneman, my question was actually for you.
Actually, Mr. Gaskins, were you done answering Ms. Davis's question?
I was just going to say, no, we don't have any schools that are in fear of closing because of enrollment.
Thank you.
My question was very brief, just about the fund. And if it's an oversimplification, help me by complicating it a little bit. But the pot of money that we use to pay teachers, is that the same pot of money that we would use to pay district positions?
The general fund?
Yes.
That's our biggest, primary source. Our monies from the state that we earn through QBE gets dumped into our general fund. All of our property taxes that we collect in Clark County gets dumped into our general fund.
Okay.
And it funds 90% of the positions at the district. So those are positions at the school level as well as the district level.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Gant.
Okay, all in favor of approving the personnel recommendations? We have a motion and we have a second. If you would raise your hands and say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, the same signs? And any abstaining? Okay, we'll move forward with the approval of the consent agenda. There are 4 items there. The floor is open for a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, any, well, actually, it's already our consent, so, sorry about that. All in favor of adopting the consent agenda, if you would, raise your hands and say aye. Aye. Any opposed, the same signs. And any abstaining? Okay. We'll move forward with the action items. The first one is the SPLOS 6 bond resolution. We did have the presentation earlier. I'm going to just go ahead and open the floor for questions before we open the floor for a motion. Were there any additional questions that have come since we had that presentation? For Mr. Pruitt or? Okay, the floor is open for a motion.
Second.
Okay, we have Dr. Anderson made the motion, and was that Ms. Hull who seconded?
Yes.
Okay, all right. Just for the record, any follow-up comments or questions? Okay, all in favor of adopting the SPLOS 6 bond resolution, if you would, raise your hands and say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, the same signs? And any abstaining? Okay. Excuse me. The action, number 2, to approve the software license purchase. Any additional questions or comments there before we open the floor for a motion? Okay, yep. Ready for a motion? The floor is open.
I so move.
Second.
Okay, so that was Davis and Ms. Hull?
Yes.
Okay. For the record, any follow-up questions, comments? Okay, all in favor of approving the software license purchase, if you would raise your hands and say aye. Aye. Any opposed, the same signs? Aye. Okay. And any abstaining? Okay, so Ms. Palmer, did you get that? Okay. All right, and then this next to last item, approving the laptop purchase. Any follow-up questions or concern? Because I think this may have been pulled. All right, the floor is open for a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, for the record, any follow-up questions or concerns or comments? Okay, all in favor of approving the laptop purchase, if you would raise your hands and say aye. Aye. Any opposed, the same signs? Aye. And any abstaining? Okay. Dr. Anderson was opposed to the laptop purchase, right? Okay, so we have 2 opposed and the rest were, okay. Oops. Okay, we will move forward to this item 11, since we had an amended agenda, and that is to enter into executive session. And so the floor is open to enter into executive session to discuss or deliberate upon the appointment, employment, compensation, hiring, disciplinary action or dismissal, or periodic evaluation or rating of a public officer or employee, or to interview applicants for the position of superintendent.
I have a question. So
Sure.
a while ago, you didn't say, do you have any questions or comments for the approval of personnel recommendations? And I had a question.
Did I not say that for personnel recommendations?
There was other conversation. I missed it because there was other conversation.
There was other conversation, but I think I did open the floor, but if you want to make your questions for the record, and then that way Mr. Gaskins can take note of those and follow up.
Okay, so my question was just about the addendum, and now it won't even come up. So the vacated personnel or certified personnel, what is the usual turnaround time for all of these positions to be backfilled? Like how soon do they get posted as vacated?
So you're asking when someone resigns, once you all approve them, we usually post them the very next day. Is that right, Dr. Blankenship?
Dr. Blankenship, I'm sorry, could you speak in the mic just so we can,
So what
everyone
Dr.
can have access?
What Dr. Blankenship is saying is that as soon as the board approves the resignation, then the immediate supervisor has the go-ahead to go ahead and post those on our talent ed, and they usually do that the next day or by the beginning of the next week.
I don't have any more questions. I thought you had something else. Okay, thank you.
Dr. Blankenship, I'm sorry, could you answer just one quick question that that's been kind of punting around? So on the personnel list, when it's a leadership position that is being transferred from one position to another, that is not a votable item, correct?
Are you referring to like if a leadership position goes from one school to another as an interim or from an
Or from
assistant?
school to central office?
Right, that's just a transfer of location because their position is not changing.
Okay, because there was a question going around the room about people being on a list for our information, but not making it on the formal list during our regular meetings for voting purposes.
Right.
Okay, I just wanted that clarification on the
Sure.
record, thank you.
All right. So we have, the floor is open. I can't remember if there was a motion. I did read while we were going into executive session. Okay, Mr. Davis made a motion.
Second.
Dr. Maddox made a second. Any questions about that particular motion? Okay, all in favor of entering into executive session for the stated reasons, if you would raise your hands and say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Same signs. And any abstaining? Okay, thank you. We are entering into executive session at 8:45 p.m.